Hi, I'm Jason with TimberKing. Today we're going to show you how to change a V-belt in your sawmill blade wheel. Um, First thing we're going to do is take the nut loose, and we need to remember that this is a left-hand thread nut, so keep that in mind. Essentially, I'm just going to use a large crescent wrench, place on the nut rather snugly. I use just a mini sledge here to break it loose. Once we get the nut loose, go ahead and remove it. There's going to be two washers that we're going to take off as well. Just set that aside. Now we're going to remove the wheel. It's going to slide right off the axle, and then take it over to the vise. Next step is going to be removing the belt, and we're just going to cut as deep as we can with the utility knife. Just continue to keep making cuts down into the groove. Once you've gone as far as you think you can with the blade, I just take a screwdriver, a hammer, and separate the belt. The belt will then just peel out of the wheel. Discard the belt. Now we're going to place the new belt into the wheel and the wheel back into the vise. Clamp down the wheel. And at this point, it's a good idea to go ahead and spray inside this wheel here using a mild cleaner, soapy detergent. Something to give the wheel and belt a slick surface and makes it a little easier to work in the wheel. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and get the belt on as far as we can, and then place a clamp on both sides. To where we just have a small section to place into the belt, into the wheel. At this point, you can just use a small crowbar and just slowly start working the belt in. Get the belt in a little farther and reclamp. Same thing on the other side. Now if you notice, when we start trying to pry the belt in, you're going to want to twist. And that's okay, because we can go ahead and get that twist out once we get the belt in. The main purpose right now is just to get the belt into the wheel. So just kind of pop it in there, just like that. Now you can either use this mild soapy detergent again, or you can use, some people like to use the silicone lubricant. You can spray along there to try to create a slick surface, and it makes the belt easier to turn inside the wheel. What I do at this point, if you notice the The belt right now is twisted, so we need to get that to turn about 90 degrees. So what I'm doing right now is just kind of working the belt back and forth a little bit to try to pull it around 90 degrees. Now I'm just kind of pushing it around so that it's turned as far as it will actually turn at this point. And go ahead and remove clamps. And at this point, if you notice, the belt only needs to turn another 90 degrees and it'll be set perfectly exactly the way you want it. So to do that, the way I like to get this to turn, let's go ahead and set the belt right where it's twisted up at the top. I'm going to drive the screwdriver underneath the belt and out the other side. So just that the tip of the screwdriver is now sticking out. At this point, just make sure your clamp vise is tight. And what I'm doing is just pulling the screwdriver around the wheel. The belt is falling in place behind it. And as you can see, the belt's now set in, and we're ready to put the wheel back on the sawmill. Okay, the next step is placing the wheel back on the axle. One thing I will point out is that you want to make sure that the wheel is placed on correct, in the sense that you have a hub on one side. Place the hub facing the back side of the guard. Take the wheel, slide it back on the shaft. Make sure it's all the way seated back on the axle. Replace the two washers. Put your nut back on. Go ahead and snug the nut using the same technique you used to take it off. A large crescent wrench. Once you get it snug, go ahead and take your torque wrench, and we're going to torque this to 140 foot-pounds. So just make sure that you are setting it at 140 foot-pounds. Now let's go to the drive side and let's take a look at the process of getting that wheel off as well. Okay, now on the drive side, when we're going to remove this wheel, we have two wheels on this side. One is your pulley wheel back here towards the back, which is your belt drive pulley, and then you have your blade wheel. We're just going to take the front wheel off, which is your blade wheel. Now to do that, we're just going to do just like we did with the other side. We're going to take this nut off, and keep in mind again that it is left-handed thread. Remove the nut, the two washers. The next step before we can actually pull the wheel off is you'll notice there are a series of bolts here with nuts, nylock nuts on it. So we're going to have to take off each nylock nut And to do that, I just use a short 7/16 and just attach it to the end of the nut back here towards the back and remove the nut that way. Cycle the wheel around to the next nut, remove that until you get them all off. The bolts will stay there, then the wheel will just slide straight off. Then we'll do the same thing we did in the vise, replacing the wheel belt and getting the new one back in. And when you get the new wheel back on the shaft, again, make sure that the hub is facing towards the back of the guard and slide it on using the bolts and the main nut here. I slide on over that. Torque the main nut to 140 foot-pounds again, and you'll be finished. A couple notes I'd like to add is, on average, our belts need to be replaced every 300 to 400 hours. That really varies sometimes depending on how you use your saw. So a good indication visually is to just look at the belt and check to see if there's a rise to the belt on the pulley face. Once this belt is wore completely flat and it's not rising above the pulley face anymore, that's probably a good time to go ahead and change these belts. In extreme cases, if the belts are worn too bad, the blade will actually come off the wheels in operation. If you were to have that happen, then that's a good indication again of time to change the belts. So that's it for the belt change. Thank you.